Hello, welcome to Oxford Heirlooms. Today I'm going to be embroidering my little 6-petal flowerets on the teacat bonnet, or on the bonnet side and headpiece. But one thing I did, I've started one floweret already. But one thing I did before I started to embroider, I was concerned that when I made my flowerets and lazy daisy leaves, they may skew at different angles going down the middle of the bonnet. So I put my straight edge ruler from the center mark on one end to the center mark on the other end, and I can see my 5 little blue marks. So I used my friction erasable pen and I drew about a 1/2 inch line centered on each of my blue marks. So you can see what I did on the fabric here. There's a blue dot with a friction erasable pen mark on top of it. And that is in a straight line, so I can hopefully make sure that all of my flowerets end up being parallel and in a straight line going down the bonnet. Okay, now I have a little 3-inch spring action embroidery hoop. These are hard to find, and I'm going to put a link down in the video description where you can get one of these because they're, like I said, they're hard to find. Okay, so I'm going to center my next floweret inside my little embroidery hoop, put my inside spring in there. Okay, now when I embroider, and particularly when I'm dealing with 2 colors, rather than changing my thread, changing the thread in my needle as I switch colors, I'll load up one needle with one color thread and another needle with another color thread. So I've got both colors of thread loaded up in needles. Now the colors that I'm using are the same colors I used on the day gown when I was smocking and when I was embroidering the little flowerets on the hem of the day gown. This is DMC embroidery floss, and the green is color number 369. And as I mentioned before in my video on project number 2, I had some lavender wrapped up on a card, and apparently I did not label it, but it does match the lavender on the Swiss edging. And I think that these little flowerets in the middle of the bonnet headpiece, it's going to be a real nice detail, and it will look really lovely. Okay, so I'm going to start with my lavender floss. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in on my friction erasable pen about 1/8 of an inch away from the blue dot. I'm on the left side of the blue dot. Then I'm going to go back to the back side and finish the first petal. I'm going to come in right above that first petal, but halfway through the length of it. Go over about 1/8 of an inch and make a second little petal. Then I'll come back in at the blue dot again. Go back to the back about 1/8 of an inch away. And I'll complete my third little petal. Then I'm going to come in just below where I just went into the back. And back to the blue dot in the center. I'm going to create a 4th petal. I'll come back in about halfway through, halfway between the 4th petal. And then I'm going to come halfway between, about 1/8 of an inch away, about 1/16 of an inch away from the blue dot. And then I'm going to come back in at the blue dot one more time and go back out right underneath where I originally started my floweret. Okay, now you can tie this off in just whatever is your preferred method of making a knot on the back of the fabric. I have a tendency just to make simple knots. because some embroidery knots require you to tack it onto the fabric, and with colored threads, sometimes where you tack it, you can see that, and I don't want to see it, so I just make a knot that won't come back through to the front end of the garment. Okay, now I'm going to make a lazy daisy leaf. Right where I started petal number 1 on the left side of the flowerette, I'm going to come in from the back, and my knot anchors the floss in here, and then about 1/8 of an inch away, I'm going to finish off my lazy daisy leaf. Come back in 1/8 of an inch away. And that makes a little lazy daisy leaf. And then when you anchor it, you go right to the outside of the loop and go to the back of your piece again. Oh, I've made a little knot in here. I hate when I do that. Hang on just a second. Let me get this knot. Okay, that was not a hopeless knot. So I got the knot out, and I'll finish anchoring the end of that little lazy daisy leaf, and then I can tie this off in the back, and then I will tie a knot in my thread and start my second little lazy daisy leaf. But I've got one finished already over here to the right. I'm about finished with the second one, and I've got 1, 2, 3 more to do, and then I'll be ready to start. Well, I'll have to press it because, as you can see, the embroidery hoop leaves a little circle on the fabric. Oh, and just so you know, I'm embroidering with 3 strands of embroidery floss, and I'm using 2 needles. I've got 1 needle for my lavender thread and 1 needle for my green thread. That way, I don't have to thread and unthread my needle over and over again as I'm doing the work. Now, like I said, I'll put a link down below for a 3-inch embroidery hoop because, like I said, they are hard to come by. But when you're doing some fine detail work, I mean, it works, and particularly with some of the pattern pieces for infants' clothing are so small, having a tiny little embroidery hoop will really come in handy. But that's what I'm doing today. Thank you.